Imagine a world split in two. Not by an ocean, but by a wall. A concrete scar running through the heart of a city, a nation, a continent. For 28 years, the Berlin Wall was more than just bricks and mortar. It was a symbol of a world divided, a daily, brutal reminder of the Cold War. But on one chilly November night in 1989, everything changed. This is the story of the night the Berlin Wall fell, a night when history held its breath and ordinary people achieved the extraordinary. It all started with a mistake. A bureaucratic blunder of epic proportions, on the evening of November 9, 1989. A mid-level East German official named Gunter Schabowski sat down for a routine press conference. He had a stack of papers in front of him, detailing new, slightly relaxed travel regulations. The changes were meant to be a minor concession, a way to ease mounting public pressure. They were supposed to go into effect the next day, with all the proper paperwork, of course. But Schabowski, who hadn't been fully briefed, skimmed the document and made an announcement that would send shockwaves around the globe. When a journalist asked when the new rules would apply, Schabowski, looking a bit lost, shuffled his papers and famously mumbled, "As far as I know, effective immediately, without delay." Immediately, without delay. The words hung in the air. Foreign journalists in the room were stunned. Could it be true? Within minutes, the news was being broadcast across East and West Germany. On West German television, which many East Germans secretly watched, the lead headline was blunt: "East Germany opens its borders." For the people of East Berlin, it was a moment of disbelief, followed by a surge of hope they hadn't dared to feel for decades. Decades of being walled in, of families torn apart, of dreams stifled by concrete and barbed wire. Was it a trick? Was it real? There was only one way to find out. Hesitantly at first, then in a trickle, and then in a flood, people began to leave their homes. They walked towards the checkpoints along the wall, drawn by an irresistible magnetic pull. At the Bornholmer Strasse border crossing, the guards were in a state of utter confusion. Their phones were ringing off the hook. But their superiors had no new orders. They had their standing command: use lethal force against anyone trying to cross illegally. But this wasn't one or two people trying to escape. This was a crowd, a massive, peaceful, but determined crowd, chanting, "Open the gate! Open the gate!" The pressure was immense. The guards, young men themselves, were face to face with their own people, neighbors, classmates, fellow citizens. Lieutenant Colonel Harald Juger was the officer in charge at Bornholmer Strasse that night. He was a loyal servant of the state, but he was also a man caught in an impossible situation. He made frantic calls to his superiors, begging for instructions. The answer was always the same: stand firm, but don't shoot. The crowd grew larger, more insistent. People were pressing against the barriers. The situation was a powder keg. Juger knew he couldn't hold them back forever. He feared a stampede, a tragedy. Finally, at around 11:30 p.m., faced with an overwhelming human tide and no clear orders from above, Harald Juger made a decision that would change history. He gave the order: open the barrier. Gate creaked open, and for a moment, there was silence. Disbelief. Then, a roar. The crowd surged forward, pouring into West Berlin. People were laughing, crying, hugging the bewildered border guards who, just moments before, had been their jailers. What followed was one of the greatest street parties in human history. East and West Berliners, strangers separated for a generation, embraced in the streets. They shared champagne, climbed onto the wall, and began to chip away at the hated symbol of division with hammers and chisels. These weren't soldiers or politicians. They were ordinary people, armed with household tools, dismantling a superpower's monument to oppression. The sound of those hammers hitting concrete was the sound of freedom. All along the wall, the scenes were the same. At the iconic Brandenburg Gate, which had stood in a desolate no-man's land for years, thousands gathered. People scaled the wall, dancing and singing on top of it, a place that had once been a deadly kill zone. It was a surreal, joyous, and profoundly emotional spectacle. Families and friends, separated for nearly 30 years, found each other in tearful reunions. A man saw his brother for the first time since they were teenagers. A grandmother held her grandchild, born in the West. For the very first time, each embrace was a victory. A personal triumph over the cold calculus of politics. The world watched. Captivated, this wasn't a military victory. It was a victory of the human spirit. It was the culmination of years of quiet resistance, of peaceful protests in cities like Leipzig, where citizens had marched bravely, chanting "Wir sind das Volk, we are the people." They had shown that the will of the people, when united and determined, is more powerful than any wall, any army, any ideology. In the days and weeks that followed, the wall was systematically demolished. The Mauerpicht, or wallpeckers, continued their work, taking home a piece of history. What was once a symbol of oppression became a canvas for art, a monument to unity, and eventually, a relic. The fall of the Berlin Wall didn't just reunite a city, it signaled the end of the Cold War. It paved the way for German reunification and redrew the map of Europe. It was a domino that set off a chain reaction across the Eastern Bloc, inspiring movements for freedom and democracy. Today, little of the wall remains. A few preserved sections stand as a memorial, a reminder of what was and what can be overcome. The story of November 9, 1989, is a powerful testament to the fact that change is possible, that division is not permanent, and that the desire for freedom is a force that cannot be contained forever. It's a story of how a mistaken word on a chaotic evening, combined with the courage of ordinary people, brought down a wall and changed the world. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as moving as we do, please like this video, subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history, and share your thoughts or even your own memories in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.